Welcome back. All right, so now we're going to talk about Buffalo. And I know. It all feels like piling on if you're a Sabres fan right now, doesn't it? But let us keep this in mind. After Eichel went down last year, the record wasn't as bad for parts as you would think it was without Jack Eichel. Yes, at the time I'm recording this, Jack Eichel is still a member of the Buffalo Sabres. Heck, maybe I'm recording this now because I thought, hey, the only way to get him traded out of Buffalo is to do the season preview so people can come back to this video and complain. You got to redo this because Eichel's been traded. We'll see. But I don't think it's necessarily all doom and gloom. I don't. And let's get into why. Because I have legitimate reasons for saying this. So their power play last year wasn't bad. 21%, 12th overall. Their penalty kill, 77.7%, which was 26th. Not good enough, right? Goals for, 134, which was 28th. Not last. Goals against, 196, which was 29th. Again, not last. And goaltending is the one thing. Goaltending is the one thing when I'm looking at this team that I say, I don't know. Maybe they'll surprise people, but I just don't know because it all depends on Luukkonen. And again, until a kid has been given that chance to be a starter, we just don't know. We don't know how good he's going to be or how he'll exceed expectations or not. Maybe not live up to them, this kind of thing, right? So when we look at their draft picks, it shows you the perilous position they're in, that they appear to be going into a rebuild before coming out of the last one. And I've talked about this recently. And as a Canuck fan, I absolutely sympathize with how this must feel. Because I've watched the Canucks do the same thing over their history. Where it's like, all right, we're going to tear this down. But you didn't finish yet. How do you... Okay. So, and I'm not talking about now either. I'm talking about back in the 80s. So 2015, Jack Eichel was drafted second overall. And that was the year they really tore everything down. That was the year that Buffalo said, you know what, we're going to go for Connor McDavid. And they ended up finishing second because of the draft lottery. Edmonton winning that draft lottery and taking McDavid. And if McDavid is in Buffalo, I don't know how much better things are than they have been under with Eichel. Because I think there are some organizational issues in Buffalo. They take Gooley, 51st overall that year. 2016, they draft Alex Nylander at number 6. Of course, he didn't pan out the way they wanted him to. Asplund, though at 33, looks like a good pick. Hagel at 159, member now of the Chicago Blackhawks, but notable, right? 2017, Casey Middlestad's drafted at number 8. This year, it looks like he's finally starting to live up to his advanced billing. Luukkonen drafted 54th. Right now, looks like a solid pick. 2018, they draft Dahlin, first overall. They also draft Matthias Samuelsson at 32. 2019, they drafted Cousins at number 7. They draft Ryan Johnson at 31. That's the draft pick they got back in the Ryan O'Reilly trade. Johnson will not be rushed. I think they understand how important that pick is. 2020, they drafted Jack Quinn at number 8, and then they drafted Peterka at 34. Both of those players project as being decent goal scorers at the NHL level. And then this year, at 1, of course, they draft Owen Power, and at 14 in a trade with Philadelphia, they get number 14, and they use that on Isaac Rosen. Now, in most of these previews, I'm not going to be talking about the 2021 picks because it's too early. But in Buffalo's case, it's not, because they have that number 1 pick that they used on Owen Power, who might jump into the lineup this year and maybe not. At the time I'm recording this, not signed. Again, it's one of those things that this video may make happen. If Owen Power signs an entry-level contract over the next couple of days, you're welcome, Buffalo fans. Their exits, notable. Sam Reinhart, that's a huge loss. Huge loss for them as a goal scorer, player. Ristolainen, that's a loss as well, but I think they got good value for Ristolainen. Ullmark's gone as well. That's a starting goaltender who was easily their best goaltender last year. Hutton, who is the backup. It was not the same with Hutton as it was with Ullmark. McCabe, who was lost for most of the season with injury, and now he is gone out of the organization. Borgen, of course, picked up by Seattle. And Toby Reeder. Toby Reeder, good penalty killer, but again, replaceable? Yes. So their new faces, they added Vinny Hinostroza. I've always been a Vinny Hinostroza fan, still am. Pesek, who can play forward as well as defense. He can play either or. Craig Anderson, Aaron Dell, and net. They were added, and it felt like it was kind of a rush thing. I don't know that it was, but it felt like it at the time. And they add Ryan McInnes, and we'll see if McInnes can break into this lineup as well. He may get a better opportunity here than he was going to get in Columbus, right? So the last 3 years have been ugly, but 33, 39, and 10, sixth in the Atlantic in 2018-2019. 2019-2020, 30, 31, and 8, and sixth in the Atlantic. This past season, 15, 34, and 7, eighth in the East, and they nearly set a record for losses in a row. Very, very close. Would have had it all to themselves. Almost did it. So Buffalo has definitely a lot of digging to do. And losing the high-profile players they have, and with this public rift with Jack Eichel, it's a problem. So when you look at their forward group, Skinner is the highest paid. So this is mostly by the highest paid to the lowest paid. And Skinner's contract, while it's an issue, it's not really crippling to the Buffalo Sabres right now in that they're not at the cap anyways. And if they trade out Eichel's contract, they'll probably end up having to take some money back in that contract in that trade. But at least with the cap space they have and the low expectations, they can take on maybe a bad contract in that trade and get an extra prospect or an extra draft pick while they're at it. But again, we don't know what they're going to get for Eichel. So I can only go right now based on what they have. And the likelihood that whatever they get for Eichel will be a downgrade for right now. Probably a downgrade for the team right now. Unless Kevin Adams is trying to pick up somebody who's going to help them right now. Almost as much as Eichel would. You've got Olofsson there. I like Olofsson. I do. Eakin. Is he overpaid? Maybe a little bit, but again, depth center. Okposo, I've got a down arrow next to Okposo because honestly, it's not really a surprise if he's a healthy scratch. It's kind of a surprise when he's in the lineup now. Gergensons, who of course missed a large chunk with injuries last year. Bjork, Anders Bjork's going to have higher expectations this year, so the up arrow for him. Higher expectations in Buffalo than he had in Boston. And he has some offense there. So again, as doom and gloom as everything is for Buffalo, they may end up being better than we expect. Thompson, Hinostroza, Cousins. Cousins is expected to improve on last year's totals. Asplund is expected to improve as well. McInnes, Kajula, Hayden, Middlestad. Middlestad had a very good run once the coaching change happened, and we'll see if that continues this year. Ruotsalainen, I expect pretty good year from him. So I put an up arrow next to him. Jack Quinn. Now, normally, Quinn, I'd put him under prospects, but I get the feeling he's going to get an opportunity to play right out of the gate at this season, and that he could very well be a regular part of this roster that needs goal scoring. And Murray, I put on the board as well for the same reason. That Buffalo will have openings for prospects you may not see on very many other teams. On the blue line, Miller, I could put a down arrow next to Miller, but I don't think we're there yet. Butcher, who was added from New Jersey. It's one of those ones that people may just forget has taken place. Haig came over from Philadelphia. Pesek, added as a free agent. Bryson may very well get himself more games this year than he had last season. Dahlin, I have an up arrow next to Dahlin because he really is a very talented defenseman who had kind of a rough year. But by the end of the season, he had recovered from what was a rough start. Yoki Haru, I still like Yoki Haru, and I apologize because I know there's other people that don't. Jimmy Schultz is an interesting pickup by Buffalo. He was picked up by Vegas. There was some hype around him when Vegas picked him up, and then he just didn't crack their lineup. He will have a better chance to crack the lineup in Buffalo than he did in Vegas, so that could be a very smart pickup. And Davidson, Brandon Davidson, continuing to put in games here and there at the NHL level, play in the AHL as well. He's a guy who can clear waivers, and you're going to keep him around. In net, again, the interesting thing for me in net, and I don't even have Tokarski on the board. I could have put Tokarski on the board because they may need all four goaltenders. Anderson, Dell, Luukkonen, and Tokarski. Anderson, I have a down arrow because he's 40. So the expectations should be lowered with him. Dell, I have no idea what to expect with Dell. Sometimes he looks good, sometimes not as much. And Luukkonen, there's a lot expected of him. And I think signing Anderson and Dell might be in part to shield Luukkonen from being behind a team that could be very bad. But again, there are reasons to look at the forward group and say, you know what, there's a lot of youth in this lineup that could surprise people. Again, when they were without Eichel, they didn't do as badly as people expected. After that awful losing streak, anyways. Once the coaching change happened, things seemed to get better. And I know the record doesn't necessarily show it, but records don't necessarily tell you how a team is or isn't playing. So their prospect list, John Jason Peterka. Peterka might find himself on this roster this season. Matthias Samuelsson, defenseman, might get thrown out there this year. Owen Power is the big question mark. Does Owen Power end up going to Buffalo this year, or does he wait? Ryan Johnson, still unsigned at this point, going through his collegiate career. At some point, you would think that Johnson, Power, Samuelsson get added. And once you start getting those guys in the lineup, you might have a pretty good defense. You might have a very good defense with Dahlin, Power, Johnson. You've got to think at least one of the other guys is going to stick around. Bryson's probably still going to be there. You might have a very good defense, but not yet. Not there yet. And again, the forward group may end up being better than expected. Probably not yet. Devin Levi I've got on the board because when I talk about the Reinhart trade and people got kind of triggered when I said that they didn't get anything back. My point was they didn't get anything currently on their roster back. Devin Levi, a steal in the 7th round for Florida, but his NHL upside is still kind of an unknown. And I want Levi to succeed. I'd like to see him do very well at the NHL level. I'm still kind of wondering how that's going to go for him. But again, when you trade Reinhart, who was one of your best forwards, and you don't get anything back on your roster for right now, that is a loss at this point. And when you look at what they got for Risto, and then you look at what they got for Reinhart, it feels like they got more for Ristolainen than they did for Reinhart, right? So their cup odds are 200-1. That's the longest odds you're going to find. They're not the only team at 200-1, but as we go along, we will discuss that. But yeah, 200-1, their last Stanley Cup. They, much like their expansion brethren in Vancouver, it's not a thing. And that's something that for both Buffalo and Vancouver, it absolutely hangs over the franchise that they've never won a Stanley Cup. I would love to see Buffalo win one so that narrative is gone. I'd also like to see Vancouver win one. Do I think they'll win one? I've been asked which team wins one first, Buffalo or Vancouver, and I kind of throw my arms up and go, I don't know how either of them necessarily do. Want them to prove me wrong. Prove me wrong, guys. So, yeah, my prediction is that they finish 8th in the Atlantic, but I don't think they're going to have a record that's as bad as what others may predict. So, I think Buffalo will win some games with some youthful scoring and maybe surprising people. Maybe teams take them a little bit too lightly. Their schedule, it's not bad for them to start off the season. So, October 14th, they're at home against Montreal. Then the 16th, they're against Arizona. 19th, they're against Vancouver. 22nd, they're against Boston. Those are all at home. Of those 4 games, you would think that Arizona and Vancouver could be winnable for them. Montreal, we'll see, right? It's opening night. So it's possible Buffalo wins 3 of their first 4 games. Buffalo has had hot streaks to start their seasons in recent years. Then they go on the road. They play New Jersey on the 23rd. Then on the 25th, they're at home against Tampa. Before on the 28th, they go to Anaheim. And on the 31st, they're at LA. So they're on the East Coast for the first 5 games, or 6 games. And then they have a couple of games on the West Coast as we head into November. So it'll be interesting to see how they're doing after that first month, because you have Arizona, LA, Anaheim, New Jersey. These are all teams that have been outside the playoffs looking in. Vancouver as well. So Buffalo could have another strong start. It is possible. And that's really all that Buffalo fans can ask for right now is hope. It's a dangerous word, but sure. We'll see how things go this year. And when Eichel gets traded, if he gets traded, it's still kind of an if for me. Because the way Buffalo's saying it, it's, well, we don't have to. And again, I understand this could all be public posturing. But Eichel, you would think, has to show up for Buffalo's training camp, right? All right. Hopefully, this video being posted will bring an end to that, and we'll see a trade happen sooner rather than later, or some kind of a resolution, right? But again, I want to see Buffalo improve. I want to see them get better. It doesn't look like it happens this season. Prove me wrong, Buffalo. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. And, as always, don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you have not already done so. I'll talk to you again soon.